We will be testing on Kennedy's shoulder flexion. So we're going to put the fulcrum right here at her shoulder and go ahead and flex back for me. Okay, and then we're going to line it with the lateral side of her epicondyle. And she is at 170, which is within normal range. I'm testing Kennedy's shoulder extension today. So I'm going to line the fulcrum up to her shoulder. And lift up for me, please. So she's actually at 60, and we aligned the moving arm to the lateral epicondyle. And she's at 60, so that means that she's within normal range. Okay, so right now I'm going to do the shoulder abduction on Kennedy, and we're going to align the center of the fulcrum up with her acromion process, which is right here. It's the middle of the shoulder bone and the clavicle. So right here, and then go ahead and move your arm back in adduction for me. So we're going to keep the stationary arm on the side of her sternum, and we're going to have the moving arm at the medial epicondyle. So normal range is 180, and that's exactly where she's at. Okay, so I'm doing adduction, which is also the medial internal rotation part of the shoulder. So I'm going to have Kennedy to have her arm in a 90-degree angle. I'm going to put the center of the fulcrum at her elbow, also known as the ulcranon. And I'm going to have her move as far down as that she can. So go ahead and do that for me. Okay, and the moving arm is going to line up to the ulnar styloid. And the average range is a 70, and she is at 64 right now.
Okay, we are doing shoulder lateral external rotation. So we're going to have Kaylee lay down supine. We're going to stabilize her shoulder by putting some kind of like cloth or towel under her shoulder. So we're going to start her out in this position, and we're going to align the fulcrum with her elbow. And so we're going to have her go ahead and go back. And the moving arm, we're going to line up with the ulnar side of her wrist. So she is at 75 degrees.
So we're doing elbow flexion, and I have Kennedy's arm straight with support underneath her arm. And we have the fulcrum aligned with her lateral epicondyle of her elbow. So go ahead and flex for me. The normal range is 140 to 150. And the moving arm is supposed to line up with the radial side of her arm. So right now she's at 138. Alright, so now we are testing extension of the elbow. So we're going to have the acromion, the fulcrum lined up at the lateral epicondyle. And Kennedy will already be in a flex position, so we're going to have her extend her arm. Okay, so the moving arm is going to be lined with the radial side of her hand, and it's going to be at 180 and 0, so she's in normal range. Okay, I am measuring Kennedy's forearm supination, so she's going to have her arm aligned like this. I'm going to align the center of the fulcrum right here to her ulnar side of her wrist. So go ahead and supinate for me. Okay, so that should be at 85, which was in normal range, and the moving arm should line up to the lateral midline of her radial side of her hand, which is right here. Alright, I'm doing forearm pronation, and I'm going to align the fulcrum up to the ulnar styloid process, so right here on her wrist. Alright, so go ahead and pronate for me. Okay, and the moving arm will be at the distal side of the radius, and it is at 75 degrees, which is average. Alright, so we're doing wrist flexion today, and make sure that the goni is sunny side up. So we're going to align the center of the fulcrum to the lateral tricuspid and flex for me. And we're going to align the moving arm to the pinky. And the range is 65. and that's within average.
Okay, so we are going to do wrist extension. We want to make sure that it's sunny side down, so the half circle is pointing down. We're going to line up the stationary arm with her forearm, and then the moving arm, we're going to have her go ahead and extend.
Fingers aren't flexed.
Fingers are nice and loose, so we don't want them flexed. And we're going to put the moving arm up to her pinky side. So she is at about 60.
Alright, so we're doing wrist ulnar deviation, and when you're measuring this, you want to make sure that the half sun is pointing in the opposite direction of where the wrist is moving. So we're going to align the center of the fulcrum to the dorsal part of the wrist, and we're going to align the stationary arm on her forearm and the moving arm on her middle finger. So go ahead and deviate ulnarly for me. Alright. So she scored a 35, which is within average. We're going to do wrist radial deviation. So for this, make sure that the half sun is turned in the opposite direction of the way the wrist is moving. So we're going to align the center of the fulcrum up to the dorsal part of the wrist and the stationary arm over the forearm and the moving arm on the middle finger. So go ahead and deviate for me. All right. So she is at 25.